Welcome back to the Guilty Parent Club series. I'm Dr. Jo Muller, and in the last episode, we started to introduce the parent P keys and how they tackle different aspects of that vicious cycle that we can get into as parents, where we become full of self-doubt, we're reacting to our kids, and then we're feeling guilty about it afterwards. We heard about the parent perspective key, which is about helping us to find some practical tools that can help us be more emotionally regulated in those difficult moments. But we also heard that those tools are not going to help us very much unless we tackle some of the underneath causes of our dysregulation in the first place. And this is what the parent playfulness key is for. It's about looking at the multitude of ways in which our basic needs often go unmet as parents, and the impact that this can have on our regulation. So often we're very focused on making sure our children have everything they need in order to stay on an even keel. Rest, food, fun, connection, sleep. But our own cups are running on empty. And so, in the parent playfulness key, we explore how we can start to identify, then meet these needs. But at the same time, we want to be able to bring more positive emotion into our life, to actually pour more resources into ourselves. And that's about embracing playfulness as a grown-up. Have a look in your workbook to see more about this and to see a definition of play. In the playfulness key, we dig into why it can be so difficult to prioritise our own play and downtime and meeting our needs. Whether that's practical barriers like a lack of time or support, or deeper patterns around guilt and self-sacrifice that many of us have learned growing up and are reinforced by the society around us. You'll hear about the classic oxygen mask analogy, but also the woodcutter version that parents often connect with better and feel it makes more sense. It can help us reframe those moments of reaction with our kids and to see them through the lens not of what have I done wrong here, but what do I need? What unmet need is underlying my reactions here? One of the main tools that I introduce in the parent playfulness key is my unique escapes framework. It's a straightforward way of thinking about the different kinds of activities that actually recharge us. We'll talk through the main ingredients for meeting our own needs that genuinely work, using my visual mapping tool. So we think about solitude versus connection, for example, achievement versus simple pleasures, soothing versus energizing activities, why each of these dimensions is rooted in the scientific evidence base, and how we can mix these different types of activities together in a way that genuinely suits you and helps to regulate your nervous system. I'll show you why keeping a little record of what you try and what works can actually supercharge not only your motivation, but actually the effects of whatever it is that you've taken time to do. And we'll explore the idea of tweakments, small, realistic tweaks to daily life that can make all the difference, rather than an unattainable ideal of perfection that we know just isn't possible when we're a parent. We come at this really from the angle that self-care or playfulness is not just another job to get right, but it's a vital part of resetting our nervous systems, meeting our needs, restoring a sense of flow and fun, and also modelling to our children what it really means to look after ourselves. So that was the parent playfulness key. The next one is the parent predictability key. And this is about understanding why we get triggered so much by our kids in the first place. It's very difficult to stop the cycle of self-doubt and reactivity if we don't have an understanding of why. In the parent predictability key, we get to grips with what sets us off as parents. Those moments where suddenly we're reacting in a way that feels a bit bigger than the situation might deserve. We know that our children thrive when life feels predictable, and of course we explore how to make it so in the child predictability key. But it's exactly the same for us. When we can predict what might push our buttons, we stand a much better chance of staying calm, feeling more in control, and crucially, reducing the likelihood of getting swept up in all that parent guilt and shame. So in this key, I talk about the importance of recognizing both the more obvious day-to-day stressors like mornings that are a rush or fraught bedtimes, but also the deeper stuff. We'll begin by tracking which of our children's behaviours or emotions tend to trigger those strong reactions in us, noticing any patterns. And then we'll move on to looking beneath the surface, exploring the second layer thoughts that we first started to think about in the parent perspective key. These are the beliefs or the labels about ourselves or our children that might not be fully in our awareness, but that can get activated almost without us noticing. Take a look in your workbook to see some questions that will help you reflect on what some of these triggers might be. We'll also find out more about how we can categorize our triggers, or our buttons that can get pressed. We will explore whether your buttons are more to do with identity, for example, feeling like you're failing, being disrespected, or not in control, or more about attachment, like a deep need to be liked, about feeling rejected or even unloved. We'll explore where these reactions have come from. Often they are rooted in how we were parented or other experiences that we've had in the past. And bringing these patterns into the light means that we can start to shift them, rather than simply stumbling around in the same old cycles. Once we can spot the predictable patterns in what triggers us and what triggers our partners, as well as why this happens, we can think about how to make small, practical changes. We can plan ahead for tricky moments. We can use strategies from the child keys to smooth transitions and boundary setting moments. And we can also draw on techniques from the other parent keys to boost our regulation and our self-compassion, leaving us feeling more confident and in control. So that's the parent predictability key. It's all about making those difficult day-to-day situations as a parent feel a little bit more certain and expected, and having a plan. So hopefully you are beginning to see how the parent P keys each address the different components and the different layers of why we can struggle as parents. Looking at the moments where we lose it and what we can do then, but also looking deeper, understanding and working more on the root causes, planning ahead. Meet me in the next episode when we will hear about the parent power key and how this one follows on from the parent playfulness and predictability keys that we heard in this episode, and why the parent imperfection key is the anchor right at the heart of our club, and something that should be right at the heart of all of our parenting. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. If this episode resonated for you, I would love you to join us in the Guilty Parent Club. As a member of the club, you'll gain access to exclusive private podcasts and workbooks, providing deeper dives into these topics, taking you step by step through the 6 P key framework, and they're packed with practical tools that you can apply straight away. For more details, head over to drjoethepsychologist.com/Guilty Parent Club. See you there.